Is the US-Canada alliance dead? For decades, that question would have been unthinkable. But after years of trade disputes and political tension, what was once a quiet partnership now feels like it's on life support. The relationship, once defined by shared values, is being redrawn by cold, hard economic reality. The final nail in the coffin hasn't been a single event, but a slow burn of instability, culminating in what comes next: the mandatory review of the US-Mexico-Canada Trade Agreement, or USMCA, on July 1, 2026. That's not just a routine check-in, it's a high-stakes test that could unravel the entire economic foundation of North America. While a fictional script might imagine a dramatic 3-hour showdown, the real story is about the strategic maneuvering happening right now, behind the scenes, as Canada prepares for a battle that will define its future. To understand the tension, you have to look at the moment things began to freeze over. The chill between Ottawa and Washington didn't start overnight. Under the America First doctrine, the old playbook was thrown out. Years of escalating geopolitical tensions and trade threats have taken their toll. Public opinion polls show a profound shift, with a majority of Canadians now viewing the US not as a reliable ally, but as a potential threat. This anxiety was given a voice in January 2026 at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Standing before a global audience, Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered a landmark speech, declaring that the American-led international order had suffered a rupture. He argued that great powers were now using economic integration as a weapon and tariffs as leverage. Without naming Donald Trump, the message was clear. Carney called on middle powers like Canada to unite, warning, "If we're not at the table, we're on the menu." The speech earned a rare standing ovation, showing just how much Canada's frustrations were shared by other nations. In Washington, this wasn't seen as a visionary call to action. It was seen as a direct attack. Trump, who was also at Davos, shot back the next day, telling Carney that Canada lives because of the United States. It was a remark that perfectly captured the dynamic Trump wanted: a dominant America and a grateful neighbor. But Carney had just declared that this old order was over. The stage was set for a confrontation where political goodwill was gone, leaving only economic hardball. There was no dramatic 72-hour ultimatum with a 100% tariff on all Canadian goods. The reality is something more complex, and in some ways, more dangerous: a state of perpetual economic brinkmanship. The real ultimatum is the looming USMCA review on July 1, 2026. Let's be clear about what this means. The USMCA, the trade deal Trump himself negotiated, contains a clause that requires a joint review every 6 years. If the three countries can't agree to extend the deal, it could trigger a decade of annual reviews, creating massive uncertainty, or even lead to its eventual termination in 2036. Trump has already signaled he's willing to pull out of the pact if he can't get the concessions he wants, and has even floated the idea of negotiating separate deals with Canada and Mexico to maximize his leverage. The demands on the table are a direct challenge to Canadian economic policy. The U.S. is seeking greater access to Canada's protected dairy market, stricter rules for auto manufacturing to favor American production, and broader alignment on everything from mineral supply chains to migration. These aren't minor tweaks. They're fundamental rewrites of a continental trade pact, and the threat of withdrawal is the weapon being used to force them through. The White House's calm language about a modernized bilateral trade relationship is a thinly veiled instrument of economic coercion, designed to look like a negotiation, but structured for capitulation. The clock isn't ticking for 72 hours. It's ticking toward July 1st. While Washington sets the stage for a high-pressure negotiation, Ottawa has been moving with calculated speed. Canada's response hasn't been a single dramatic rejection, but a systematic, behind-the-scenes preparation for economic conflict. It's a strategy of keeping calm while preparing for a storm. First, Canada has made it clear that while it's open to negotiation, it will not be bullied. Carney signaled that if the United States proceeds with devastating tariff threats, Canada is fully prepared to retaliate. In response to U.S. tariffs imposed in 2025, Canada prepared its own list of counter-tariffs on key American goods. This isn't a bluff. It's a clear-eyed statement that a trade war would inflict immense pain on both sides of the border. It's a reminder that while the U.S. market is critical to Canada, Canadian resources and deeply integrated supply chains are vital to the American economy. Second, Canada is fighting back on the legal and diplomatic fronts. The government is coordinating with Mexico to present a united front on key issues and has launched challenges to what it sees as illegal tariffs. This strategy has already seen some success, with the U.S. Supreme Court striking down certain tariffs imposed under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act in February 2026. This multi-pronged approach has seized the narrative. Instead of being drawn into a reality show spectacle, Canada has framed its position as a reasonable defense of its national interest. This has laid the groundwork for the real negotiation at the USMCA review, but on terms that reject capitulation. Carney's rupture speech wasn't just diplomatic rhetoric. It was the moment Canada began publicly preparing for a new world. The old alliance, built on an assumption of friendship, is being replaced by a colder reality of strategic competition. What comes next are three possible scenarios, each with profound consequences. The first, and most terrifying, is full-scale escalation. This is the world where the USMCA review fails, and Trump pulls the trigger on sweeping new tariffs. In this reality, the integrated North American supply chain shatters. The auto sector, where parts can cross the border multiple times, would grind to a halt. Critical minerals from Canada, essential for U.S. tech and defense, would be choked off. Canadian energy, a cornerstone of U.S. energy security, could be restricted. This path leads to a deep, punishing recession on both sides of the border, a self-inflicted wound born from political hardball. The second scenario is the path we are currently on, the uneasy compromise. This is a state of perpetual conflict, where trade is managed through constant brinkmanship. Even with a trade deal in place, we've seen disputes over steel, aluminum, and softwood lumber escalate, with threats and retaliatory levies becoming the new normal. This huge uncertainty is poison for business investment and long-term planning. The USMCA review on July 1, 2026 is the flashpoint. A failure to agree on a 16-year extension could institutionalize this instability, forcing annual reviews where the entire relationship is put on the chopping block year after year. The third and final scenario is Canada's diversification win. This is the long game, and it's the strategy Carney's defiance has unlocked. His actions have given Canada the political license to aggressively seek new partners. For decades, diversifying trade away from the U.S. was a talking point. Now, it's a national security imperative. We're seeing this in real time. Carney's government has actively pursued deeper ties with other powers, launching new partnerships with Australia on clean energy and critical minerals, and with Japan on defense and cybersecurity. The ultimate consequence of Trump's aggression is that it has forced Canada to build an economic future where the U.S. is no longer the only customer that matters. He intended to make America first, but he may have succeeded only in making Canada more independent. What we're witnessing is a fundamental break. The era of treating the U.S.-Canada relationship as a special friendship is over. Mark Carney's rupture speech signaled that Canada would no longer play the role of a compliant ally. It was a declaration of sovereignty, a pivot from a relationship based on nostalgia to one based on clear-eyed national interest. The old order is being replaced by a far more uncertain and transactional world. The deeply integrated supply chains that defined North American prosperity are now seen as strategic vulnerabilities. The upcoming USMCA review is not just a meeting, it's a test of whether the continent can find a new, more balanced equilibrium or slide further into economic conflict. Trump's aggression was meant to force Canadian submission, but it has instead accelerated Canada's drive for strategic autonomy. By pushing its closest ally away, the United States may find that it has inadvertently created a more resilient and independent neighbor, one that is actively building a future less dependent on American markets. The alliance as we knew it has changed forever. What comes next is being written right now. But what do you think? Is this the beginning of a more realistic relationship, or the start of a permanent economic rivalry? And what should Canada's top priority be heading into the critical USMCA review? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this analysis valuable, please give this video a like and subscribe for more deep dives into the economic and political shifts defining our era. Thank you for watching.